In the last video, we talked about the thesauri and using the thesauri within the databases to really build out our search strategy. And this time, we're going to take a look at that search strategy and we're going to tweak it so that it works most effectively in all of the databases that we are taking a look at. The different databases use language differently. And as we pulled in some of these terms, it brought in this DE code. And that DE, it's telling the databases to only search in subject headings. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that code so that when I search this in multiple databases, it doesn't limit it to the subject headings. It'll find it anywhere those terms or that phrase shows up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of these. Just delete the DEs. Another thing that you'll notice is that when we pulled in terms from the thesauri, they automatically stuck everything in quotation marks. The quotation marks are telling the databases that we want to search this exact phrase exactly how it appears. If we didn't have the quotation marks around these phrases, the database would be looking for behavioral within the abstract, the subject terms, or the title, and therapy, the same thing. But it wouldn't necessarily be only searching for them as a phrase. So if I wanted the databases to search for this exact phrase, then I might go ahead and keep those quotation marks. I think I'm going to go ahead and remove them from behavioral therapy and behavior therapy because I feel like sometimes there might be other words that might go in between them or around them. And the way to do that is to put that phrase in parentheses, and then in between the two words, I'm going to type N and I'm going to type 3. I could also do N4, N5, and what this is telling the databases is that I want the word behavioral to show up within 3 words of the word therapy. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing with behavior therapy, N3, behavior modification. I feel like keeping that as a phrase is fine, but one of the things that the quotation marks also do is make it so that it will not search for singular and plural together. So I might also want to add behavior modifications with an S. I do want to get rid of these quotation marks around behavior. I do want it to pick up singular and plural, so if those quotation marks stay around there, it won't pick that up. And the same thing with counter conditioning. Another thing that I want to take a look at is when words are both one word and two words within the literature. And so service members is one of those. And so I'm going to go ahead and do service members as 2 separate words in quotation marks so that it's that exact phrase. And then coming down to mental health, one of the things that I want to be aware of is I've got stress over here. And I'm going to go ahead and take those quotation marks off. Since I'm searching for stress, post-traumatic stress is going to show up anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Maybe I want to pick up both trauma and traumatic. And so I'm going to add an asterisk to the end of trauma so that it will pick up trauma and traumatic as well. And there's also anxieties and anxiousness. I'm going to do the same thing for anxiety as I did for traumatic. Now I'm going to plug these back in to our databases and just see what difference that makes. With all of those terms, that turns out to be 19,299. I will go ahead and use my limiters over here. So there's the peer-reviewed limiter. So I can click that. So that knocks us down just a little bit. And then I can also go to this publication date. And we had made a note of this 2001 year from the Encyclopedia of Social Work when we were looking. So I'll also go ahead and make that limiter. So then we still got 10,195. That's still a lot of search results. And so what this tells me is that more than likely this is just too broad of a topic for me to really be able to handle well. And so I'm going to need to figure out some way to narrow this topic down. And so that is what we will get a little bit more into in the next tutorial.